Good morning to you. Welcome to Sunrise. It's a lovely day, isn't it?
Well, it looks like
it's a good day to be alive, really. Somebody said we're getting deeper into the year. It's just still January.
I just saw a video now, by the way, that someone is saying, wait, the year is how many days old and you already celebrated your birthday?
I'm Joke Rogers.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Good morning and welcome. It's been quite a week, both locally and globally.
Yes.
Let's go global first. U.S. President Trump, exiting the U.S. from 66 international organizations.
Yes, it's crazy, really. I mean, I think he's been, during his first term, he was alluding to such that he was going to do, stuff like that. And especially during the COVID era, where he said that the WHO wasn't doing anything for the world anyway. When there was this back and forth about who started the COVID-19, was it China? Was it, when the blame game was on? So I think he was already in that mood already but to exit 66?
Well, the number one place I went to check whether the U.S. exited was NATO. Guess what? NATO is not on the list.
It cannot be. It cannot be. There are too many allies in NATO for him to exit.
And then, but there's been a condemnation, worldwide condemnation of his
invasion of
Venezuela. And I've also heard the Danish Prime Minister talking tough. Look, guy, this is against all international laws and treaties and all of that. And then there are those who are also referenced in historical antecedents, that every 250 years in the world order changes. Yeah. Every 250 years, some empire will go down, another one will arise. There was a time we had the British Empire. There was a time it was the Egyptian, Roman, and all those things. I don't know what's happening right now. Maybe because if anything happens, and it so happens that the world order changes and the United States of America is no longer the way, we know it to be now. What's going to happen to world trade? Are we going to change the currency from the dollar?
Well, some people are trying to, rely less on the dollar. I think that's one of the reasons why Trump is so, agitated, because I think he's beginning to see that maybe some countries may not really need the U.S. as much. Not that we don't need, the dollar, but you try to rely less on the dollar because, there's a lot of topsy-turvy whatever that comes with it. So I think that's what it is.
That's global. That's the global dimension. One of the things that happened in the
locally, yes, River State. I don't know. It's a never-ending story, really. So now we see the
you don't take it with a pinch of salt.
River State House Assembly starting impeachment proceedings against Governor Siminalayi.
Third impeachment proceeding
against him. Call it what you want. So it's and we thought that things had died down with the lifting of the suspension on the governor, reinstating him, the interim government that was there while he was on suspension.
The sole
administrator, took his bow, and all that. And we thought things had died down. The president had intervened. A lot of things had happened. And then suddenly, and then we also see the FCC, since before the end of the year, he's been visiting one local government or the other. People have been celebrating him.
It's going to be really interesting. 2020, a very interesting 2026.
Yeah, it's been the election year.
It's the
politicking year.
Yeah, and a lot of it has already started. So because the people are looking, for instance, there is hardly any governor in River State in particular that has not had an issue with the predecessor. Hardly any. And it's almost like it's a relay. Yeah. Like after you is me, and then all of that goes on. We've also heard the former governor and minister of the FCT is saying, look, if whether or not it is true that a second term for Governor Fubara means the demise of his political influence or whatever in Rivers State. I don't really see how that can happen, but hey, I'm not a politician, so I wouldn't know. But then there are those who are wondering that this whole skirmish happening right now, this whole furore in Rivers State, is because he wants to remain politically relevant and all of that. And I'm like, Peter Odili is still relevant. Or am I missing something?
Definitely lots. And possibly the governor might have seen the handwriting on the wall, which is why one of the possible reasons he defected,
Yeah.
Because if the FCT minister is still a member of the PDP, and, there are lots of suggestions. Well, we've not heard him say it himself, but there are a lot of suggestions that, the Governor Fubara may not return as governor, as we said, because of Mr. Wike. And then, because he might not get the party tickets if Mr. Wike has anything to do with it. So, but if he's now in the APC, the dynamics have changed. The FCT minister is not an APC member. He's still a PDP member. So he has no say in that sense, if we look at it in that sense. So maybe Governor Fubara will say, okay, well, if I don't get a party ticket under the PDP, maybe I will get it under the APC, since I'm now an APC governor. So, it's a lot of politics and
we just wait to
game
see
of chess.
All unravel. By the way, another game of chess is happening in the oil sector.
Yeah.
Or should I say oil industry. The Alhaji Dangote put in that petition in the ICPC, then withdrew it and filed another one at the EFCC. So people are just wondering, what's going on here? ICPC says, well, withdraw or no withdraw, those allegations are enough for us to investigate. And the coming days are also going to be
yes, and just before we go to the menu, of course, the strike in the medical sector as well.
And that's actually quite a serious one, because if people start to die, will the strike still be relevant?
Yeah.
God forbid that, though. So,
okay, so what do we have? Tackling poverty in Nigeria. That one is a serious issue. We've been trying to do that a long time. Many policies and programs of government have been on to try and do that. So we'll see how we can further that cause.
Interestingly, that conversation is followed by a focus on new tax laws.
Okay.
And there are those who are wondering, hey, they're going to tax us to poverty again. Anyway.
And then, wow, somebody heard the missing Harmattan.
Is it?
Is it missing?
Or is just waiting? First time some people will see it rain on January 1st.
Yes, I was quite shocked myself.
No, it wasn't just rain, it was a
heavy rain.
And then Lofty Heights Conference 2026 is coming up.
With the Unbroken is the theme. And then we have the lifestyle. We're still talking about this matter.
Yeah.
Managing age-appropriate behavior.
Absolutely. Don't kill those children in the name of discipline. What stage of life are they? Anyway, we'll get to that one. Our artist of the week this morning is different. You find out on Ravel.
AI artist?
You'll find out more about that later. In the meantime, do yourself a favor.
Yep.
Grab your cup of cocoa.
Yeah, cup of cocoa. Or coffee,
or
simply.
Coffee, or water. And you'll still be in sync. We'll be right back. Thank you so much for staying with us this morning. I want to talk about poverty and how Nigeria has been tackling it. To be honest, Joke, many times when we talk about these things, we're sitting down in lush environments, so to speak, and people are wondering, how can you be talking about poverty or tackling poverty in this environment? It seems like we don't understand. Yeah. You know, what is happening and how people are directly affected. But the truth of the matter is, when you work in a news organization, you encounter so many stories that don't make it to the news. Yeah. And a good number of those stories is to protect our psyche, sometimes from some really horrible and gory stuff. Because we understand that approximately 141 million people, or say 62% of Nigeria's population, is expected to live in poverty in 2026.
Wow. And I see, you know, sometimes when you talk about these figures, when you say expected to, there's like a 5 to 10 year projection.
Exactly.
But no, this is 2026, so it's as real as it can be.
And what are the things that form poverty? I guess maybe we'll have a good understanding of that with our panel this morning, who are having the conversation with us, because in Southwest Nigeria, an African proverb says, once you take hunger out of poverty,
yeah,
the poverty is reduced.
It's reduced, yeah.
But is that the case? Well, we'll find out this morning. Professor Bongo Adi is a professor of economics at the Lagos Business School, Pan Atlantic University. He's here in the studio with us. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me today.
Also with us is Juliet Benitia, who is the International Director for Training, Institute for National Transformation and Women Leadership Expert. She joins us from our Abuja studio. Thank you for joining us, madam.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure being here this morning.
In Abuja today, we thought you will see you in Lagos. Anyway, you're forgiven. Then we also have Oluseyi Oyebizi, who is the Executive Director, Nigerian Network of NGOs. He joins us virtually. Thank you for joining us this morning, Mr. Oyebizi.
A pleasure.
Yeah. So let's begin with you, Prof. Do you think, I mean, we have a vague or general idea of what poverty means. So there is a general, should I say, cast for what it means. But please, from a professional perspective, help us understand, not just a socio-political, but it's from a socio-economic perspective. What does it mean to live in poverty?
Thank you very much. Well, there are many ways to define poverty. But I think the one that everybody hears of is the material deprivation. And then we see it as when people live below a certain minimum income in a day. So you can look at it from expenditure, people who spend below what is able to give them a modicum of living. Or you look at it from a consumption, perspective, or from an income perspective. You can also look at poverty from an asset. What do the poor people have, or what do people have? Recently, we've also seen the multidimensional poverty added to the mix. So when you look at it, it's all speaking to material deprivation. Okay, when people lack the basic means to survive or to sustain, a meaningful life.
Does that fully capture it?
It doesn't capture it because there are so many manifestations of poverty. And then we cannot always focus on just the correlates of poverty. So when someone is poor, the person has low income, he probably has low education, may suffer malnutrition, has low access to health, low access to sanitation, and so on and so forth. Basic social services are lacking. Okay, so that is one way to look at poverty. You can also look at it from, so you have absolute poverty, whereby no matter how you look at it, someone really lives below the line. Then you can also have relative poverty compared to other people within the same community or within the same distribution. This individual is not meeting up. So you can see it from that perspective as well. Then when we become a little bit philosophical, you can talk about freedom. Okay, when people are poor, they are not able to exert their rights. Okay, they also lack freedom of speech.
So essentially you're saying deprivation, significant deprivation.
That is it.
Okay.
Across all dimensions.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, madam, let me bring the same question to you, but this time around, let's see exactly whether or not you think we have been addressing the problem of poverty the way we ought to a large extent. And when people are talking about addressing poverty, we're looking at what the federal government is doing. And I always say this, is we seem to cut the state governments a lot of slack. Is it also to do with so that's one way to look at it. Another angle to that same question is it only what government does? Is there anything that the private sector can do also in that regard? What are your thoughts on how we are tackling poverty as a nation?
Thank you very much. Once again, good morning. The reality of poverty is an issue of the society in which we live. As Africans, or specifically as Nigerians, we have not understood the veracity and the depth of what poverty is all about. And for us, most people, they think that poverty is all about the fact that maybe you should be able to eat once a day, you are surviving, so you're okay. And so addressing poverty is actually a fundamental issue, a foundational issue, starting from the families. It's not a government issue. It's a societal issue. And I want to read from a book. It says in a book I'm reading called Financialism. When I got the invitation, I remember this book, Financialism, Water from an Empty Well. And guess what? It's written by our president in 2012 and forwarded by Professor Wole Soyinka and Reverend Jesse Jackson. And Reverend Jesse Jackson say, however, if you do not understand how economy works and how you can hope to change your status from being its victim to being one of its leaders, the reality is that one of the things I've learned over the years in leadership and understanding nation building is that we do not understand how to break the circle of poverty. We have accepted poverty and we think it should be something that should not be solved. Because from many religious perspectives, whether as Christians or Muslims, we think that poverty is something that, oh yes, it will always be amongst us. So there's no need. But right now we are in an extreme level of too many poor people. Nigeria is second to poverty today by the statistics of 2025 after India, because of India's population also. We have a population that is poor, and we think that it's okay for us to continue.
Perhaps a good follow-up question, madam.
Private sector, family sector.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My apologies. Perhaps another way to look at whether or not we've been tackling it right is, what are we doing wrong? Or do you think we've over the years we've been tokenistic about addressing poverty? Because we talk about it all the time, National Agency for Poverty Alleviation, this one, that one, and all those things. Are we being tokenistic, or you think maybe we need a broader perspective? Help us understand.
Yes, that's where I'm getting to. The issue is that we haven't been solving it because, again, solving poverty is also expensive. It's time-consuming. And so if you're a society that is just a consuming society and just surviving, you will not solve it because you do not know the futuristic importance of solving poverty. Take, for example, Nigeria has a population of over 200 million. In other words, we have people. The greatest capital on earth is not natural resources. The greatest capital on earth is human beings. And human beings are meant to be processed to become productive. The governments of the world, including the United States and Nigeria, and many African countries just copying without applying, have not sat down to look at the empirical capacity that we have to solve this problem. Solving poverty includes educational issues. Solving poverty includes opening up the economy. Solving poverty includes becoming a productive society. We are too many and too blessed to be poor.
Okay.
Because poverty is not just about economic growth.
Okay.
For example, we talked about the 100 trillion mark we have made in the stock exchange, but that does not cascade to the daily life. One of the things I've learned in the last decade, that economic growth is not equal to economic development. And so we need to merge the two. And
well,
many of
thankfully,
us as
madam, my apologies.
beings,
Thankfully, we have an economist in the house who will help us, decode why economic growth and economic development are not in the same room. But before we come back to him, Mr. ABC, you've heard all of these. Because you work with NGOs, I'm going to have to come to you on this particular angle. There are those who are saying the demonstration of wealth or affluence in the states is because no one is holding to account the state governments as seriously as the federal government is being held by many people, including civil society organizations such as yourself. So what are your thoughts on that? Because the optics say that we seem to be cutting the state governments a lot of slack and not holding them to account. Consequently, the poverty issue is not going to be addressed where they should take action.
Well, I totally agree with you, and I think we need some level of improvement in how we engage subnational governments, particularly when you look at the fact that many of the challenges that we have are happening at the state level, including population that are in poverty at this time. All need to now hold the government accountable to programs and initiatives that can lift many out of poverty. But we must also understand that addressing poverty is a complex issue. And this is where we need a whole of sector approach to that, including a whole of government approach as well. If you look at all of the interventions that we've seen so far, it seems that only the federal government seems to be providing leadership in addressing poverty. However, at the subnational level, we've not seen how governments are addressing that, away from some of the infrastructure around development projects that we see them doing, roads, hospitals, and all of those bits. We've not seen budgeting for social protection in ways that helps the poorest of the poor, but also we've not seen how governments at the subnational level are providing decent jobs, because it is when jobs are created at the state level that we can have that economic prosperity. And I agree with you that we have to find a way of addressing this. Okay. And we can only address this if civic space is open, meaning that I can effectively criticize my government. I mean, when Prof was talking, he said when you look at poverty as well, it means that it could also affect your rights. It's very easy for you to address issues at the federal level and you don't get arrested. Okay. But you know,
just one thing. You and Madam, you have both addressed the Prof. So, Prof, you have to respond. So, two things that both of them said I like you to, and I know that Joke has quite a list of questions as well. Madam said, tackling poverty is costly. Yeah. In other words, you have to be rich to address poverty. And then Mr. Oyebode said, Mr. ABC said, tackling poverty is complex. And I saw you nod. Yes. You agree. So please help us.
Yeah, it's just like you are reading my mind. There is this book, The Science of Getting Rich. I don't know if you've read that book, Wallace Wattos. That book was written in the 1920s. So, very interesting book, very small, about 60 pages. So he said that you shouldn't talk about poverty. The only way to tackle poverty is to grow rich. Okay? So that if you talk about poverty, probably you become poor. That's what Watson said. That's kind of funny. But I think we tend to restrict ourselves to this, what I call the reification of poverty, construction or creation of poverty. We fabricate poverty, make it something. Poverty is not a thing, just as the light and darkness. Darkness is the absence of light, it's not. Okay? So poverty is no different from growing rich. So they are all on the same trajectory. The role of government when they make their budget is about growing the economy. So if you grow the economy, if you build infrastructure, both social and physical infrastructure, you will eliminate poverty. I mean, and I'm not sure that you can ever eliminate poverty, because even in the Holy Book, it said that you always have the poor with you. So we don't need to worry about poverty as such. We don't need to construct poverty and make it into a thing. What we need to focus on is to ensure that government policies address growth at all levels. Now, Madam made the distinction between growth and development, and I agree with her. I mean, that's a stylized fact in economics, that economic growth isn't equal to economic development. Growth simply refers to the growth in GDP. Like when she mentioned the capital market is $1 trillion or whatever, I mean naira, okay? But, you know, then the GDP is growing. But that does not translate to development. Again, there is another dimension. You can also develop without transforming. Yeah. So growth is not equal to development, and development is not equal to transformation. Okay, so these are three different layers of problems. So now, development simply means that you are tackling education, you are tackling health, right? You are tackling nutrition, sanitation, water, and so on, all these aspects of social infrastructure. Now, when he said it's a complex matter, it means that you have to approach all these things together, right? Not just one piece, because you may tackle education. Maybe you solve the educational problem, everybody has access to education, but they don't have jobs. So while you are dealing with education, you also need to be anticipating where would these people be working, what would they be doing? So you need to be putting that into consideration at the same time. So for me, how do we respond to the issue of poverty? Okay, is this the reification of poverty and tackling poverty as a thing? It has never worked anywhere. And I don't think it has worked in Nigeria or that it will ever work. It won't, right? Why? Because poverty isn't a thing, right? So it is about growing rich. Let's grow the economy. Let's build the infrastructure. Let's get everybody to school and equip the schools. Let's get the hospitals functioning, right? So you increase human capital, which is manifested in health, in education, and of course, in well-being, nutrition, food. So if we invest in all of this together, and that's what government should be doing. So let's grow the economy. I agree that when the economy is growing, it doesn't mean that it's carrying everybody along. But then we need to have the economy grow before it can cascade, right, and trickle down to every member of the society. So growth is critical before you can have development. Yeah. And you need development before the economy can be transformed. Yeah.
Right. Let me come to you.
I thought this was easy.
Yeah. Let me come to you, Mrs. Benite, in our studios in Abuja. You know, quite listening to all of this, we're also talking about, you know, what we've been doing in the past. A lot of administrations have come. Now, I'm talking about the federal government now, because we've also talked about how the subnationals, you know, are really not doing so much, or they're not doing as much as they should be doing. But over the years, we've seen different administrations come up with different poverty alleviation schemes, support for businesses, support for this, support for that. Just, I think yesterday, there was a particular, I think a state government saying it's supporting some businesses and is giving them 50,000 naira and 30,000 naira somewhere to support businesses. What can that do in today's economy? What are we doing wrong? Because if we still have this level of poverty, there are certainly many things that we're not doing right.
Thank you very much. I agree to a certain degree, Professor, with a lot of the ideological issues of economy, and many which has failed across the world. And nations like maybe Singapore and even China, being a very communist nation, understood that they needed to make some shift in their economic policies and ideologies. And so even for China, who was able to reduce her poverty by 95% within at least a decade plus, between when the Millennium Development Goals issues were on to 2015 before we shifted to the SDGs. China was able to bring down her poverty level. And so when Africa talks about bringing down poverty is not an issue and is only going to be addressed in, it's going to take too much. When I say it's expensive to address poverty, what I meant is that the price, we must be willing to pay the price. For every good thing that we see in the globe and the economic indices that we see all over the world, there are prices that we need to pay. We need to invest in our people. China opened her economy and industrialization came through, but they had the products also of the agricultural products that were processed. In every product that we have as a nation, it can be accelerated to the highest level of its capacity. And for example, if you have one mango fruit, in that mango is the issue of an industry of pharmaceutical, the industry of juices, the industry of X, Y, and Z. In the petroleum, most of the Ankara today are made with petroleum, but they are coming from China. A nation must open up to productivity capacity. Nigeria, unfortunately, is a closed economy, and so the people to prosper is also a struggle. We are very hardworking people, but hard work alone without the framework of making sure these poverty issues are broken. Poverty may not be a thing as in the theoretical matter, but in the socio-economic sector, it is a matter arising. It's a security issue, it is a human issue, and for every nation, God gives us human beings as capital. The number one capital is human being. But we have moved from even developing the human being to financialism. All we want to see is money, money, money. But the people, to create this economy, we have missed the point. So our own responsibility, starting from government frameworks of policy to the individual, whether private sector, religious sector, must understand that the human being has the capacity to increase the measure of who or she is by production. Every one of us must be trained in a different way. Our education system is also a matter arising how we think. We think to consume rather to think to produce. So we need to begin to watch what we are doing and how do we take this so-called big issue and begin to break it down into geopolitical zone and understand how we can begin to create a new framework of a productive society. The more we produce, yes, infrastructure is necessary, yes, roads must be built, electricity must begin to happen, but both must happen pari passu. You can't be talking about economic development and you are minimizing, economic growth and you're minimizing development. It has to happen pari passu. It must pursue itself in the same lane. As we are going for growth, we are going for development. And we cannot close the time, even as China was able to bridge her gap quickly, Nigeria can do the same. And so that's the matter arising for both government, private sector, and all of us who are elites, one way or the other. Our discussion level must change. It's not about criticizing the government. It's not about being critical about issue. What problem can you solve? Nigeria has one of the biggest issues. We do not know how to solve problems. So we need to start learning how to solve problems, break that black box of not being able to solve problems for too long, from one government to the other government, talking about all sorts of economic activities and events. Economic change is not about the activity and event. It's about decision, it's about the mindset, it's about how we think as a people to make the changes that are required. And we can do it. Our people are not lazy. Nigerians are hardworking. Look at the boys running up and down the street. Is that what they should be using the energy for? They should be in factories. They should be in nice schools. They should be improving. And as we do these things together, open up the economy. Government can't do anything. We are too big a people for government to be the center, what do they call it? The epic center of this activity. The private sector must come in. Religious sector must come in. Everybody must come in. Yes, we will always have the poor among us, but can we minimize that number? So that we can build a sheep nation rather than a goat nation?
Right, I quite agree with you. Let me bring this to you, Mr. Oyebisi. Quite a lot, has gone down, and she said a lot of things about, people being the resources of a nation, Nigeria or any nation. And in Nigeria, with our population, the youth, is quite a lot. Across the country, in all the geopolitical zones, we have a lot of people trying to get children off the streets, trying to get the youth back into school. We're talking about out-of-school children and a lot of those vices that are going on with the youths. Now, if we talk about the nation's population at its greatest resource, and we also have a high unemployment rate, especially with the young people. A lot of people go to universities now, yes, get educated. Yes, I'm getting an education, but when I leave the university, what next? People look for jobs, and then we also talk about jobs being created. People, when you leave university, you should have that mind that you shouldn't look for a job, but you should be able to create a job for yourself and employ other people. So, I mean, where is the balance in all of this? How do we begin to reorientate even the youth population so that they begin to have that mindset of whether I go to a conventional university, I do vocational education, I must be self-productive and I must be able to empower others, which is, I think, should be the way forward for the future.
So I think the challenge again is complex. If I do not go to university today and I've gone to a polytechnic, I'm discriminated against. If I've gone to a vocational school, I'm also discriminated against. Because, typically an average parent would want their wards to either go to the university and do some of these high-profile, courses. So that is why the conversation today is it's very tricky and delicate. Because when you look at all of the things that you need to do in either growing an economy or in addressing either monetary or multidimensional poverty, I think we are approaching them. However, the challenge has to do with how we are implementing them at the federal level and how we are implementing them at the state and local government level, including how we are paying attention to a couple of drivers that deepens poverty. Of course, we've said we needed infrastructure. We need jobs to grow at the rate of infrastructure. We do also need those jobs to create prosperity in ways that we can lift millions out of poverty. That means people must be doing something. We do also need an economy that can produce. And in that production is where we then need a youthful population that would get into factories, that would get into jobs, that would get into companies, that would get into government, that would get into civil society, producing something so that the economy can run. When you look at what we have now, and the population dynamics at this time as well, you then begin to say to yourself, how do we get out of all of this? Take, for example, agriculture. If you need to practice agriculture today, it is practiced more in the north. But you have conflict, you have insecurity happening there, and we've not been able to solve that security problem. There are efforts. However, those efforts need to grow to scale so that farmers can go back to the farm. Now, it is within the agricultural value chain that you can also bring young people. But then go check how many young individuals are applying to our universities to study agriculture. Agriculture is not necessarily, a subject or a course that any young individual would want to, study. But it is an area where, jobs can be created easily and we can have the economic prosperity that we're talking about. If you look at the value chain, agriculture is a big employer of labor. But you also find that in today's economy, you find young people either repackaging agricultural products and delivering them as well. So we must pay attention to how the economy itself is trying to recalibrate to address poverty and begin to grow those. If you also come back to conversations around manufacturing, you need electricity. Government is addressing electricity, pumping money there, But what exactly is happening in that sector? Huge corruption. You see a lot of, companies also not doing what they should be doing. To get meter in Nigeria today is a big challenge. So while policies are working, implementation and challenges of corruption are also a big thing. So let's move away from electricity and then come to small businesses. Okay, I'm glad that we'll be discussing about the new tax law, which seems to have been able to take away challenges of overtaxation on small businesses. However, a small business today would be your barber shop, would be those doing fashion design. They still need electricity for them to be able to power their businesses. Now they have to depend on generators to service that. How do we ensure that we are able to address many of these challenges in ways that help us to grow? So that is why it's a complex web. Because again, you pay attention to who exactly would service that generator when it wears and tears. Very few people are doing that again this time. So the challenge here.
Let me ask Prof. My apologies. I thought, that while the government is doing its bit in ensuring that the needful is done and everything, and Madam also mentioned the need for private sector to come in and all, there's a question in my head about elite consensus. Do you think we have that kind of elite consensus where those who can really do understand, what it takes to invest their emotions and their whatever else in ensuring that the nation is better for everyone and poverty is reduced?
Thank you for that question, elite consensus, because it keeps coming up. And why it comes up is because it's absent in Nigeria. So we do not have that. Okay, so when you talk about the consensus, is that the consensus between the politicians and the professors, the academic, let's look at the NUC, the ASU and the politicians. Is there any consensus? Can they ever have a consensus? None whatsoever. So when it comes to having some sort of, an idea or a framework of action that all Nigerians or among the elites, they are convergent, that does not exist. And when it comes to poverty as well, we don't seem to have that as well. So we have this kind of, division, okay, whereby different regions tend to have different priorities. So that is what is more pronounced. So we don't have that elite consensus. Now, when it comes to tackling poverty, the role of the private sector or individuals or the government, I studied poverty as my PhD. In fact, my PhD thesis dissertation was on poverty dynamics in Africa. I collected primary data from Nigeria and from Zimbabwe. I spent a lot of time in Zimbabwe. I spent time in Nigeria collecting data. Now, so I had to compute what is called a poverty transition matrix. Okay, over time, which families, because if you have panel data, for instance, over time, you're able to tell how many people have kind of managed to exit poverty. You notice that when people are poor below a certain level, they are no longer able to exit poverty by themselves. Okay, so that is what is called a poverty trap. Then if you look at it from a national, cross-national perspective, so which countries have managed to escape poverty in the past 50 years? You can count them on your fingers. Okay, I'm happy Madam mentioned China and maybe South Korea and Singapore and Japan. These are the countries that have managed to escape poverty since 1945.
It's interesting that they're all Asian countries.
They are all Asian countries. So no African country has managed to escape poverty. So that tells you that more than looking at it from a micro perspective, poverty is a systemic thing that has to be addressed at the state level. And from what Mr. Yebisi said, so you could see that you require a robust and forward-looking industrial policy to address issues around poverty, whether you want is electricity or manufacturing or agriculture that you mentioned. Now today, Madam said Nigeria is we are rich. I think Nigeria is a very poor country. Our per capita income, like the GDP, if you divide it by the population, is about $800 per person. Ghana is more than $2,000. Ghana. Okay, Nigeria is among the poorest African countries when it comes to per capita income, as it is today. There are countries that have $4,000 per capita income in Africa. Nigeria is just $800. Okay, so that doesn't tell you that Nigeria is a rich country in any way. Now, the national budget this year, if you put it together, is less than the budget of a corporation in water corporation in New York. I know some people may say, why do I compare apples and oranges? Okay, but let's put that in perspective. That tells you what poverty really is. So now, because we have low resources, okay, the little that we have, people now scramble over it. Okay, so that becomes a bone of contention, political issue, and all of that. So for me, okay, from an ideological, because I believe in ideology, right? From an ideological perspective, based because I have researched this over the years, I think this tokenism that we apply to poverty can never work.
So what must we do now?
Now, what we need to do is, first of all, we are lucky that we have two big companies that operate that are part of the global value chain in their sectors. The first one is Dangote Refinery, even though it's coming later. But the first is Nigeria liquefied natural gas, and then Dangote Refinery coming on right now. So what does it mean to be a part of the global value chain? It means that what you produce here is the final product is consumed somewhere else, right? So you are shipping something for consumption to the last mile, not an intermediate product, not a primary commodity, as we have always done. So how do we build an industrial policy around this so that we can create, so that will require the revamping of our educational system, our curriculum, so that we will produce and develop skills and talents to work in those industries that gives us a comparative and competitive advantage. Do you understand?
Okay.
Because that is how you can make money and then grow your GDP so that everybody will now smile. Okay. Because they say that a rising tide boils up all boats. That's the solution to poverty.
We have less than 2 minutes. Madam, your last words in 30 seconds on this thing. What must we do?
Well, what we must do, we must move from financialism back to capitalism. In the sense of, when I mean capitalism, I'm not talking about the greed that we are seeing across the world today. Every nation, especially the South Korea story, began with understanding that her people have capacity to be developed. And it is this opportunity to develop the people, to understand through curricular retraining and training of all sectors to understand that we have productive value. And finally, the economy sector, the policies around both physical and monetary, we cannot compete with nations with such high interest rates. Any nation who wants to advance in production and capacity for industrialization and export, like the Prof said, which is the end game, within Africa we have a 1.5 billion market, within Nigeria we have a 2 million market, but what is the capacity of that market? The buying power of the people are also weak. So we have to see how we can compete, even as South Korea did, as China did, and other nations have done.
Absolutely.
And even Israel, in the midst of war and issues, were able to overcome certain things.
Let me believe that not just the federal government, but the states themselves have also heard the counsel that you've given now. Mr. ABC, your last words, 30 seconds. What must we do now?
We must now focus on state governments, ensuring that the budget for prosperity and that the budget for social protection, but also more importantly, they are creating jobs at the state level.
Right. Okay.
Thank you so much for your time this morning. I like that latter part.
Yeah.
Prof started with it. The state governments, are very, very instrumental to ending poverty, or rather, tackling poverty in Nigeria. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being here this morning. Mr. Oluseyi Oyebisi is Executive Director, Nigerian Network of NGOs, joined us virtually. Madam Juliet Biniche is the International Director for Training, Institute for National Transformation and Women Leadership expert. We appreciate your time, as well as Professor Bongo Adi, Professor of Economics at Lagos Business School, Pan Atlantic University. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much
this morning, and for borrowing us some of your Zimbabwe and Nigeria data.
Very interesting.
When we return, do we still have anything to fear about the tax laws? In a moment.
Welcome back. There's been a lot of trepidation, since over the past, let me say, a couple of weeks, over the new tax law.
And it's interesting. I mean, these laws were passed when? And signed months ago, and we knew that it was going to take effect in January.
Yes,
but then we still waited until now to start being petrified.
Petrified is the word. And there's a lot of people say many people that are concerned and fighting about this law, they're probably the least to be affected by it, because if you don't have salary up to 800,000 naira, you probably will not be so much affected. And then there's so many things that the tax will not hit: education, medical bills, and so many things. So, like the government is saying, you have nothing to worry about. Just relax first, understand it, then you'll know. But I think that's the problem: lack of understanding.
Lack of understanding
is a major issue. Yes.
The furore that took place shortly before the year ended, 2025 ended, where people were saying there's a difference. What I ordered was the ones that the National Assembly passed. What I got was the one that was gazetted. So is there a difference between the two?
Yes.
I guess that's what this conversation is about.
You guys out there, if you pay attention to what Channels Television is doing, every now and then you'll see it on our screen, what the tax law is about, the things that you know about it. It's always there, rolling after each program, so pay attention. You read a lot about it, but then on your own, go and dig into it and see what it's about, see how it affects you, ask questions. I'm sure you have people around your sphere of influence that can help you answer some of these questions, like we do in the studio today, right, this morning. KPMG has identified errors, inconsistencies, and what have you, gaps and omissions in Nigeria's new tax laws. Well, maybe some questions will be answered this morning, which became effective on January 1, 2026. Now, according to KPMG, these issues could affect tax compliance, planning, and financial reporting for businesses operating in Nigeria. And a look at some of these concerns raised by KPMG: unclear taxation of communities, Section 3B and C of the Nigerian Tax Act. NTA omits community, creating uncertainty over whether communities are liable to pay tax. And what's community? A group of people. Is it just people living in areas, or sometimes we have a program called Community Report, community of tailors, community of engineers, community. What are these communities?
You need Oxford Dictionary this morning. But I think there's someone here who can speak to all these issues.
We have partner and head of tax, KPMG West Africa, Wale Ajayi. He's here with us in the studio, laughing all about this. But please, you help us clear the air on this first. Do we need to be petrified about this new tax law?
First, good morning, and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
I think let me just start first to address the reactions that we've seen with respect to our last publication on the Nigerian tax law. I think what we've seen is that in some quarters, right, they've presented the content of that newsletter in a manner that was different from what was intended or implied. Now, when it comes to doing tax reform on the scale in which we've done in Nigeria, right, there will always be some issues that need to be addressed. And those issues are normally corrected post-enactment, right? But it's very important to draw attention to those issues. And that is what we've done in that newsletter, in a way that people can understand what the tax law is all about, because there's been a lot of misinformation out there. So we need to provide clarity. The number two, it's very important for us to have an efficient and effective tax administration in Nigeria. And then number three, because it's written in words, and when you have words that are involved, there will always be misinterpretation, and you need to be able to reduce the level of dispute that may arise as a result of misinterpretation of the laws. And of course, the fourth thing that is extremely very important, to promote confidence in the tax law by timely clarifying the issues in the tax law. Now, when you started, you spoke about people being petrified. Now, one good thing I must say is that I'm happy that a lot of people are talking about the tax laws. It shows that the Presidential Committee has done a great job creating awareness about the tax law. So it's very good, right? And when you look at the fact that most of the provisions in the tax law have always been in the law, but people were not paying attention, to them. But the fact that every man on the street is talking about it is a great thing. And then we can then address the misunderstanding and the miscommunication, that has arisen, from that. Now, and the danger is the miscommunication and misrepresentation, right? Which is what we need to do. And this is what we're here to clarify, right? Anytime, people send me messages, email, am I supposed to pay tax on my transfer? Am I supposed to pay tax on these? Am I supposed to pay tax on these? So it shows that people are paying attention to it. And so what we try to do in KPMG, because our purpose, right, is to inspire confidence and empower change. All right? And what we're trying to do in Nigeria is truly transformational. It's going to change the landscape of tax admin in Nigeria, and that is why we're providing the platform for people to understand what the tax law is all about and what the provision is not. Is there. So there is no need to be petrified.
There are those who wonder, for instance, that there is a difference between errors and disagreements. Are there portions in which you disagree with in the laws, as opposed to the gaps, that have been observed?
I think what is most important is to understand that there are issues that we need to address.
Such as?
And again, I will speak about the issues. And it's not unique to Nigeria alone. Okay. I mean, even in the US, when they talk about Obamacare, they're still talking about making changes to Obamacare. Biden signed the Affordable Act into law. All right, there are issues. People are still saying we need to make changes. So when you do a large-scale, reform, there will always be need, to make changes. And when you look at the tax law, and there are areas that we need to, to look at, because one of the things we're trying to do in Nigeria today is to be able to attract investment in Nigeria. And now, when you look at the publication we have, we did acknowledge the fact that in some cases, it's only Nigeria. Some of the things we're doing in Nigeria are not novel to Nigeria. Some countries are actually doing it. But the question is, considering our own unique situation, our stage of development in Nigeria, is this something, that we need to do? So when you go through, there are some referencing errors, which is expected, right, but that can be corrected. But there are some provisions that may have impact, on the ability to attract investment into the country. I mean, one big issue, of course, is on the shares. People have been talking about shares, and you saw some of the changes or transactions that took place in December prior to the commencement of the act, right? And and we supported the harmonization of the capital gains tax. That capital gains tax is what you pay on capital transaction. And prior to January, it used to be 10%. When you have ordinary income, you pay company's income tax at 30% plus 3% tertiary education tax then, right? But the problem is, in reality, or in practice, is that there is always controversy as to what constitutes capital, right? And so people try to, structure transaction in such a way that they will pay a lower tax of 10% as capital. And we need to eliminate that. We don't need dispute, right? And so we supported the fact that we need to harmonize that, which is what they've done, right? But we also did say, right, that we also need to reduce our corporate income tax rate, because we're not the only sheriff in town. We need to be competitive. And that was going to be the direction of travel until the VAT issue because you reduce your corporate income tax and you increase VAT, because the cost of collection of VAT is lower than companies' income tax. But that wasn't done. And so what we're then saying is that since that has not been done, then we need to consider the rate of a corporate tax and bring the rate of tax down so that people do not leave Nigeria. You don't have capital flight. That is one. Number two, one other issue that is extremely important is what you call indirect transfer of shares. So for example, if you have an Egyptian company that owns shares in a Nigerian company, that owns a Nigerian company, and that Egyptian company is owned by an Indian company, right? And the Indian company sells the shares in Delhi, right? What we're saying now, prior to now, that shares is outside of Nigerian tax jurisdiction. But now we're saying that they must pay tax. Now, some countries do that. It's called indirect transfer, which is fine, right? There's nothing, because some countries do it. So it's nothing that is wrong with that. But the question is, we need investment in Nigeria. We don't want to have investment flight out of Nigeria. So that is one area that we need to look at. So what we're trying to do is to draw attention to those issues.
So sorry, on that one, my apologies. On that one, are you saying that we shouldn't collect taxes from them?
No. What I'm saying is that given our stage of development, we're talking about an Indian company that owns an Egyptian company that owns Nigeria. It's called indirect transfer. Under the law now, they will pay tax on that transaction that took place in India. Prior to now, tax will not be applicable because indirect transfer. And some countries do that, right? And we're right to do that because we have a 24 trillion deficit in revenue that we need to plug. So that is fine. But at the same time, we also need foreign investment, right? And so what typically then happens is that there's a chicken and egg thing, that we want people to come into Nigeria, and people have options, and they look at areas and jurisdictions that have lower tax and move.
My apologies, Mr. Ajayi. Is there any right-thinking businessman in the world that would ignore a 200 million man market simply because of a fraction of tax?
Well,
I'm just wondering. Maybe I don't know business.
No, your tax is not one of the considerations that investors will. It's one of the list. It's not one of the biggest considerations. The first one, obviously, is stability and security. Right? Once there's stability and you can enforce legal contract, that is fine. The issue is Nigeria has a big market, right? There is no doubt about that. More than 200 million people, right? But as an investor, right, what you're looking for, okay, because there are differences between direct investors and portfolio investors, right? Portfolio investors are the guys that are on the stock exchange. They are making money. Direct investors are the ones that are coming here and set up factories, set up plants, and what have you. So if you're talking about portfolio investors, why would I want to come to a jurisdiction where the bulk of my returns will be taxed and I can get better returns? One of the things that have driven foreign investment in Nigeria today is because of the interest rate, right, that they can get in Nigeria, right? Of course, our inflation rate is high, but the good thing is that it's coming down. Our interest rate is still at about 27% compared to 14%. That's a massive difference, right? That people will come in to take advantage of that. So what that does is that once that changes, there will be a capital flight. Okay. So that's the issue.
Okay. Well, one of the I've tried to consume as much of the issues you raised, as possible, and I also see that Mr. Oyedele's team have also responded to all the issues, that you have raised. But looking at it generally, do you think, because there will always be contestations?
Yes.
Do you think the tax appeal system embedded in the general tax administration in the country today, do you think it's capable of addressing some of these issues?
What you want to do is to try as much as possible to eliminate or reduce disputes. It's only when you have disputes that people go to tax appeal, right? Okay? So what you want to do is to try as much as possible to have a situation where people understand what the law is. Now, when the law is not so clear, What that means is that it's capable of different interpretation. So you will interpret it in a way, the tax authorities will interpret it in another way, then you have dispute, you go to court, it can take years to resolve. Nigeria, can I just finish my thought? Nigeria is not better for that because it takes days, hours, years to get the revenue. So once you can clarify that, it works. Then when it comes to appeal, the good thing is that appeal process in Nigeria is gaining ground. A lot of people now are not challenging the decisions of the tax authorities. But it's not yet where we should be, but at least people are challenging, right? And which is very good, because there is a process for that.
The reason I raised that issue actually is, I mean, when you say that, we want to eliminate as much as possible, there is a law in Lagos State. You shouldn't be charging people more than 6 months rent, for instance.
Yes. Enforcement, yeah.
So we expect that some people will just do what the law says, but we also know that there will be people who will not do what the law says, hence the courts.
Yes.
So that's why I'm asking whether you think the appeal system I don't know if it ever existed, whether the tax appeal tribunals is significant to address some of those issues and possibly even reinforce some of the complexity that you have mentioned.
No, the appeal process is robust. One of the things that have been eliminated, I'm sure you heard the stories about you have to pay some deposit to go to appeal, which is gone. Okay, it's not there. Okay, so you can challenge. But the question with appeal is that why do you want to wait to go to appeal if you can resolve the issue by simplifying the tax codes? The more you simplify the tax code, the more you are able to reduce disputes. Right, that's the issue. But our appeal process is robust. Now, it's not left for taxpayers, right, that feel aggrieved to go to court. But in Nigeria, we're not very good at challenging matters. Yeah. Right, so we just take it as it is and we move on. Right. But it is robust.
So we've talked about other countries. When we were talking about poverty levels the other time, we took a look at the Chinese example, South Korea example, Singaporean example. If we take a look at tax too, we have great cases of developed countries, or more developed countries, I like to say, whose tax systems are in place. In fact, the fear of tax is the beginning of tax. The fear of the tax man is the beginning of wisdom. Yeah. So, but how are we targeting this new taxation in Nigeria with these new tax laws? The other time you talked about company tax, income tax, all those things, and I know who that addresses. It's like people high up there. But what about the people in the middle area, and then the other regular Nigerians? I mean, they say that they don't have to be afraid because there are lots of aspects of their lives that the taxes will not affect. Yes. But what's the percentage of the taxation of the big companies and the wealthy Nigerians to low-income earners? I mean, where do they come in? Because they will too have to pay some level of taxes if we want to get the revenue that we're hoping to get from this new tax laws.
I think one thing to look at it is that when you were talking about taxation, you look at the cost of collection and how much you're collecting from that. So it's not worth your while to chase people when the revenue you're going to collect is so small. Yeah. So because then what you're going to collect is going to be swallowed by the cost, right? That is one of the issues that we're looking at in Nigeria, and they've looked at. And that is why you see a lot of low-income earners being exempt from tax, right? So that, I mean, again, we talk about poverty. So they'll have more disposable income in their hands. And of course, there's been a lot of exemption from VAT, the normal things that the poor people consume. Now, the principle of taxation is always to tax the people that earn the higher income, right, so that government can provide the resources. I think the problem in Nigeria today, and it's always been there, is that people assume that because they provide the healthcare, they provide the power, they provide the water, right, they shouldn't be paying taxes, all right? I mean, but that is not a quid pro quo. It doesn't follow. Tax is obligatory on the part of citizens. Once you earn revenue or profit, you must pay tax, right? It's a different game, a different issue entirely, whether services are provided. It's a chicken and egg thing. What comes first? Government needs money to provide infrastructure. But if you and I don't pay taxes, where would the money come from? So that's the psychology that we need to address. right? And that is the way the tax reform, has been, implemented, to ensure that people that earn low income don't pay taxes or eliminate or reduce taxes, but people that earn higher income can pay taxes. But the problem is with most people that earn very high income, the kind of taxes they pay because they invest in capital markets, right? So they get dividends. They don't do personal income tax and all those stuff. It's so small, right? And those taxes are the tax you pay on those are very low. So when people talk about Elon Musk today and say how much tax is paid, of course he won't pay taxes as with so many people because his investment is in capital, right? So that's the issue.
Okay.
But I think I'm very happy, again, like I said, that everybody is talking about it. One of the things that we're going to be doing is technology. Now, what we're doing today is that people are filing their returns on self-assessment, right? Or, for people that work in companies, it's the employer that takes the taxes. But we're getting to a point where you don't even need to file returns. The tax authorities will know how much you earn from third sources. Right. From what, you have your BVN, everything. They can trace what goes into your account, right? And then at the end of when it is time for filing returns, what they'll just send to you and say, Wale, your tax is X naira. It is done in South Africa. We will get there. Like in most countries, what you earn from way of personal income tax has the highest proportion, except in Nigeria, because a lot of Nigerians don't pay taxes.
Quick one on this, because we have just about 60 seconds. Do you think we need some kind of, I'm bringing that term again, elite consensus on tax payment? Because as the Yorubas say, the hair is like a mustache. It's not so easy to pluck off. So no matter how little the amount is, you really don't want to part with your money. So do you think we need that kind of consensus that can incentivize others to say, if I'm paying taxes because of you, and so you too should be able to pay a fraction?
I think the fact of the matter that every Nigerian needs to know and acknowledge is that once you earn income, you must pay tax. It's an obligation that is required of every citizen that earns income. Now, the issue of whether government provides services or not is a different matter entirely. You can exercise that, at the election time. But when it comes to tax, people need to know that. And I think that is what is missing. So if we can all believe, you spoke about the fear of taxman in the US or in the UK. If the taxman calls you and say, bring this, you are better bring it. You are better respond to the letter. Any letter that is sent to you,
lose more.
You lose more. So it boils down to enforcement. We're not yet there.
Oh, wow.
But we'll get there with a reform that we've just done.
Absolutely.
It's transformational. But like any reform, it's on a large scale. Yeah. There will be issues that we can correct as we go along.
Absolutely.
And that is what is going to happen.
Yes,
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Wale Ajayi.
Yes. Head. Partner and head of tax, KPMG, West Africa. A pleasure having you again.
Thank you so much.
Very interesting conversation, I must say. Do not fear the tax.
Interestingly, all tax people know themselves.
They do. November, December, January, February, March. November, December, January, February, March. So we're in January now, February and March. We still have 2 months to see if the Harmattan
is supposed to be in September. September.
We'll come up. Wait now. Usually we start feeling it towards the end of the year, and then January.
We need to ask someone.
Ask this.
Why there is a delay this year, with many regions reporting unusual heat and humidity instead of the expected chilly mornings and dusty breeze.
Could it be that
snowed where it's not supposed to snow?
Climate change is changing everything. It's changing.
Why is it not changing their own snow season? Anyway, Dr. Ibrahim Adeni is with us this morning. He's Deputy General Manager, Public Weather Services, Nigerian Meteorological Agency. He has some answers for us. Yeah. Dr. Adeni, good morning, and thanks for joining us this morning.
Yeah, good morning, the viewers. Good morning, everybody.
Where is our Harmattan, Dr. Adeni?
Yeah, Harmattan, of course, it is not been active, just like you are saying, but that can be attributed, majorly to climate change. What is climate change? a shift in long-term Earth average temperature and weather pattern. It's global, it's what is happening. The usual, Harmattan we usually have by November, December, January, February, March, like you said. November, December has not been active, basically because the dry, dusty Harmattan wind expected from the Sahara, has not been active, and that is why we are where we are. But you can be rest assured that Nigeria Meteorological Agency is monitoring the weather, within the country and outside the country, and reporting that appropriately. So we've been doing our best to make sure that the public is well informed when it comes to, weather.
Dr. Dini, it has already snowed in some parts of the world where it snows.
Where it's supposed to snow.
Or where it's supposed to snow. But it has not Harmattan in our own part of the world as it should. So that's one of the concerns. Isn't it the same climate change affecting everyone else?
Yeah, it's the same thing affecting everybody. You see an area that is warm becoming warmer, an area that is cold becoming colder. Like you said, it's not only Nigeria, and I can tell you that what we are seeing is purely as a result of climate change. You now see a shift in pattern of what you are used to, and that is exactly what is happening. It's not only Nigeria, it's been happening everywhere in the world. But our own, like I said, it's not that we don't have the Harmattan, but I may say it's not that active, because in the northern part of the country, including the north central, we have been witnessing that. But the shift, the movement to the southern part of the country is what is actually not there, particularly the inland cities and the coastal area where we are still having thunderstorms. So it's not been active in the south, and as we even speak now, because yesterday we released weather alerts that a massive dust plume has just been raised over the South region, which is expected to affect major part of the country. As we speak now, the northern part is being affected. The north central is also being affected, but it has not been able to push down due to atmospheric circulation, to push down to the southern part of the country. And like I said, it's as a result of climate change, what I've just explained. You will recall that Earth is a system where a system that everywhere is connected, what affect point A can influence what affects, can influence what happened in point B. So there's a teleconnection. It's because the Sahara, the subtropical high pressure system, that is the high pressure system over the Sahara, has not been very active. This is what's supposed to lift and raise the dust, and then you have the dust move to over the country, and that is not what we have not been seeing in a couple of weeks back. But there's a realignment now. I can tell you that for sure. There's a realignment, and a couple of days an alert was issued, and I can tell you from today, you can get in touch with the northern area. It's very active now.
Right, and you spoke about shifting patterns, and of course you alluded to climate change. How long do you think these changes, for how long will it stay? When do we expect another shift in the pattern?
We will continue to monitor here, like I told you. We monitor what happens within and outside the country, and we report that accordingly. The shift is just global. It's as a result of, like I said, human activities, atmospheric circulation, human activities that lead to, burning of fossil fuel, the coal, the oil and gas, that's resulted in the emission of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. This is basically what is causing these changes. And as we definitely, when we continue doing this, if we don't reduce this emission, if we don't reduce some of what causes this climate change, we'll continue to see this shift. It's not only in Nigeria, like I said. In some part of the world, you also see a change in pattern of their weather system. What you have not been seen before, you're now beginning to see it. So it's not only Nigeria. We just have to know that, yes, this shift is temporary and it's going to normalize again.
Right, Dr. Adeni. So, what are the expected impacts on temperature and the precipitation patterns because of these changes? Do you expect your predictions not to be as accurate because of climate change? You just don't know. If you say that 80% chance of rain and then it doesn't rain, do you expect those things to affect your predictions?
I don't expect it to affect our prediction simply because, like I told you, we monitor this thing closely. We have sophisticated tools we are using. We have our expertise. So we are working every blessed day. We are in the office doing this job. So, and we are bringing updates when necessary to the general public. So we are doing our best. We have sophisticated tools we are using. We have our expertise, like I said, and we are monitoring this event as it unfolds. So we are also updating the public where necessary. These are information that we are releasing when there is need for it. Like I told you just yesterday, when we noticed there was a massive plume over the source region, we quickly issue weather alert. And of course, don't forget that at the beginning of the season, we usually also educate the public by our public presentation of seasonal climate prediction that give you the annual outlook for the year. And in between it, every month you have the monthly outlook, you have the weekly, and every day we also issue weather outlook, weather bulletin, weather forecast, both in TV and print, that we send to the public. So we are monitoring it and we are updating the public. And you can be rest assured that you will not miss anything out. All our forecasts come with advisory that allow the public to be able to take an informed decision, to be able to know what to do. So our forecast is robust. It comes with that advisory so that you don't just only get what the forecast we do, but what the forecast will be, but what the forecast will do.
Right.
Come with advisory to sensitize the public, different sector of the economy, the farmers, the health sector, the aviation, the energy, all sectors, and the general public, so that they know what to do, even the health sector, so that this Harmattan period, we have also been sensitizing people. Each of our forecasts, we look at it. When we notice that the concentration of such dust is too much in the atmosphere, we let the public know, so that those with asthma and some other respiratory conditions will take necessary precautions.
Right. Right. Okay. So you talked about educating the public and creating awareness about what to do, when you have harsh weather and all that. And we also talked about climate change, creating the biggest effects on some of these weather patterns. About creating awareness, do you work with agencies like NEMA and other emergency agencies to educate people on what not to do as regards to effects of climate change, and land degradation and what have you, those things that contribute to the harsh effects of the climate change that we have already? Or how do you educate the public as NIMET?
Thank you for that question. We work closely with all other government agencies, NEMA you mentioned, NISA, all Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Agriculture, all other government agencies at the state level, at the federal level. We collaborate, we work together. We have strong collaboration with all these agencies. As a matter of fact, we have, memorandum of understanding with so many organizations within the country or even outside. Within the country, we collaborate with a lot of organizations to ensure that the forecast get to nooks and crannies of this country, so that people are well informed, people have access to it. September last year, we did public engagement, stakeholders engagement. Like I said, even at the beginning of this year, you will also see public presentation of seasonal climate prediction, where we give invitation to all stakeholders to be part of this, so that they will come, they will witness it, they will now know how the socioeconomic implication of this forecast can affect their sectors. so that they will be able to plan for the year, they will be able to plan ahead, they will be able to also take it from where NIMET stop. You can be rest assured that we have strong collaboration with a lot of government institutions, including the NEMA you mentioned.
Okay. We know that we really wish you could do something about it, Dr. Adeni. I mean, just all we are saying, bring back our Harmattan, but we know that you really don't have that power yet. However, you know, having said all that, perhaps there is also a need for you to please educate Nigerians on what you consider or could be the implications of this delay on agriculture, water resources, and the public health.
Thank you. The implication on agriculture, we have livestock agriculture, we have, you know, the crop farming. For crop, when we have excessive heat, it could damage the crop, it could cause soil moisture loss, it could also cause, you know, affect the soil itself, it can damage the crop itself. But it has not been significant to that effect that it could cause, you know, significant damage to our crop. I know crops like yam, yam, wheat, perhaps soya beans may be affected because of the planting and harvesting cycle. Yes, but I'm very sure it's not going to cause a significant damage. But for the livestock, now that we have, you know, heat, there's every possibility that it could also cause, you know, poultry mortality, will affect the libido of the, you know, animals and all that. But these are things that could be managed well because it's not yet at a severe stage. So I believe for farming, yes, it can be managed well. Health is what we need to do more. Why? Because this season now, you see more of flu, more of dry lips, dry skin, eye irritation, you know, flu, colds, catarrh, and the rest of them. So we just need to take necessary precaution. People with asthma and respiratory disorder, like I said, need to be very careful. Don't spend so much time outside. If you need to use nose mask, take care of your health. Use, you know, lotion this time around so that your skin can be moisturized, and make sure that you take a lot of water so that your body will not be dehydrated. For water resources, yes, this time now for surface water, we need to manage our water well, especially for irrigation. You need to manage it well so that you don't waste water, because as you are doing it, it evaporates as well because of the heat. So we need to ensure that all sectors make good use of the weather we have now to ensure that we have a, you know, positive result. Thank you.
Let me double down on that same question, Dr. Adeni, and ask maybe a little more specifically, more explicitly, are there implications on food production?
Yes. Like I said, for food production, if you look at some of you know, like yam, like wheat, like soya beans, like I said, it could affect the plant harvesting cycle just because it's usually within this season. But because the Harmattan is not that, you know, there, so to say, it may have, you know, little effect, but not to worry about that it could cause a significant, because like I said, it's just been a couple of weeks. The Harmattan is back in the north. We have seen, as we speak now, the dust haze is there over the extreme north and the north central, where we have the major production of this, you know, I've mentioned, the soya beans, the yam, and the what I've just mentioned now, really. So where we have the good production of this, you know, farming system, is there. It may not be that strong or active like we say, but it's not totally absent. So the effect will not be that significant on, you know, crop production like I explained.
Okay.
So, but down in the south where you still have rain, don't forget that what we plant depends on the location, the area. The farmers, the way what they farm depends on the area. And above all, I just need to mention it, that climate smart agriculture is what people need to practice now. Climate smart agriculture, some resilient, weather resilient varieties are what, climate resilient varieties are what people plant these days. So it could withstand this kind of, extreme weather event, and you have a good harvest.
Okay, on that, maybe in a different way. Growing up, I remember, and I kept talking about September because I remember that when you go to school, boarding school, first term of any academic session, it is in September. And you almost feel the Harmattan almost as soon as you go to school. That's why I keep referencing September. But it seems you and Joke agree that's supposed to be October, November, December. And I do not argue with that. But the question that I'm asking now is, what are the things you think people, because you've spoken to government a little, what are the things, the measures you think that people in communities and the farmers, what are the measures you think they can take to adapt to the changing season?
For farmers, like I said earlier, this is time to look for drought-tolerant, seedlings, drought-tolerant seedlings to plant, so that even when you have shortage of, rainfall, because we practice rainfall agriculture in Nigeria mostly, that is one thing. Secondly, there should be plan B, which is in cases where you don't have adequate moisture or rainfall, you need to quickly, do irrigation. We should also practice climate smart agriculture, which is what is in vogue now. This is what is obtainable globally. You now have seeds that are, that can tolerate this kind of condition, and it will strive well and give bomber harvest. For public, we should also try to make sure that we reduce, some of human activities that could lead to climate change, like this emission of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. These are what contribute to this climate change.
Okay.
So we should do that. We should also ensure that in our own little way, we find a link between some of the policies that is on ground with government to ensure that we don't kick against, or we don't do things that can, aggravate climate change.
Okay, but the reason I'm asking this, about farmers, about agriculture, about food production, is because, for instance, I'm not sure farmers, if NIMET, your organization, your agency, or informed Nigerians about it, I'm not sure anyone paid attention to the fact that there could be this delay, and consequently, it's possible that farmers didn't quite prepare for what it is that you are advising now. So, leading to the question of whether or not you think this can have impact on food prices. It's that part that I'm actually speaking to, because if there is a delay, naturally scarcity is created and all of that. Do you see that happening in the course of the year?
That is not unlikely. Not unlikely because, nobody dictates the price of commodity for farmers. What they do is based on their harvest, and, there's no price control. That could happen. But of course, like you mentioned, during our public presentation of climate seasonal climate prediction, we usually invite farmers across all board, including the association, including those that practice, including, at the state level, and some even NGOs, to make sure that at the end of the day, these forecasts get to nooks and crannies, of this country. They are aware at the beginning, they know. It's just that when the intensity is not there, it's just a delay, like I said. It's not totally absent. It's not totally absent. And this delay, they already even know, farmers already know what to plant towards this season, because they plant crops that doesn't require so much water. So they already know what to plant. You cannot plant crops that require so much water when you know that during Harmattan you have less rainfall. So they already know what to plant, and that is why I said I don't expect a significant impact on what they do. It only affects the cycle. Perhaps the plant harvesting cycle, which may be a little, instead of harvesting at maybe so week, you had like a week or two to make sure that you have enough growth. That is what I think could happen, not that it will affect the price, because price is being dictated by individual, not that we have a control price.
Right, and so do you reckon that there are potential long-term consequences because of the changing patterns owing to climate change, long-term consequences of a weakened or delayed Harmattan season on Nigeria's climate and ecosystems?
We are lucky. We are lucky, like I said, we are lucky just a couple of days. There's a realignment, and the high pressure system expected to strengthen over the Sahara started strengthening, and we now begin to see dust plume being raised over the South region, and that is expected to move over the country. I don't see, because like I said, we now begin to see the alignment. So definitely the season, we still have January, February, March before the season lapses. So we now begin to see the Harmattan coming. And if you remember the January outlook that we sent out, we expect this season to take its shape. We expect the Harmattan to take its shape, and it has started. As we speak now, if you call somebody in the far north, the core north, the dust is there already, and we expect that to move southward. So everything being equal and this realignment being sustained, the season will be back to the normal January, February that we know.
So what would be your advice to the average Nigerian right now who are saying, you have assured us that in a few weeks we should expect the Harmattan to kick in, but so what would be your advice to the people as we prepare?
Not few weeks, like I said, it has started already. Okay. We are already seeing the dust, dry dusty wind suspension in far north. And my advice is, NIMET is really doing its best. We are on daily basis, we are giving out this forecast on print, on TV, and on all our social media platforms. All I need to encourage them now is to make sure that they get, this weather forecast is free, readily available on all our social media platforms. Get the forecast, make good use of it. It will guide your decision so that you can take the best decision on any of your daily activities. I also want to appeal to the general public to make sure that they are weather aware, they are weather ready and climate smart. There's nothing you want to do now that you don't need to know what the weather will be. So get in touch with NIMET in case you need a specific project that requires to know what will be the implication of weather on that. Get in touch with NIMET. We are always there.
Well, at least you have given us a bit of good news this morning.
Certainly.
Now we are no longer looking for our Harmattan. It's here and now. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Dr. Ibrahim Adeniji. Beg your pardon. Dr. Ibrahim Adeniyi is Deputy General Manager, Public Weather Services, Nigerian Meteorological Agency. Again, thank you for educating us today.
Thank you for having me.
We're back in a moment for another conversation. Do stay with us.
Welcome back. And now we're talking about the state of being unbroken. I think no matter what life throws at you, you have to be resistant. You have to be...
No, I don't have to be resistant. I can be resilient.
You can't be resistant to what life throws at you. You have not heard what they say. You have to be, strong.
What if I need that thing to be strong? Anyway, that's not a question for you to answer.
Lofty Heights Conference 2026, and the theme is Unbroken. And that's what we're going to talk about at this point. Lofty Heights Conference is an impactful gathering of young professionals. And, this year's marks the 10th edition. So they've been doing this for decade or so. It's an annual inspirational and mind-provoking gathering designed to empower participants to be the best in their chosen fields and live a purposeful life built on excellence. And this is what I always tell younger people: strive for excellence and everything else will follow well. They also say, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and other things shall be added. But, you know, in this life, context for everybody: strive for excellence and everything will follow. So we have Wale Tejumade, convener, Lofty Heights Conference. He's with us in the studio today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, so.
It's so nice to have you.
It's so great to be back here.
Yeah, so tell us, after 10 years, you know, what else is new? What's 2026 edition? You know, what's that going to be about?
Interesting. You know, that's actually, when we were planning for the 10th edition, that's the 10th year edition, the question you just asked right now was one of the things very, you know, topmost on our heart. Okay, so what is the next thing? Should we pivot? What else do we need to do? This been successful by any stretch of imagination? Do we need to change anything, you know, and all of that? But at the same time, there is no need fixing something that is not broken. If the wheel is not broken, there is no need fixing it. The conference, you know, on this very large scale, first held the major editions October, I think sometimes in October or so of 2016. Yeah, 2016. That was at Terra Culture, you know, Lagos. And these were days before Japa, before people began to travel out of the country, you know, for economic reasons and all of that. And it's done so well for itself, you know, and for the attendees. I travel a lot. I don't live in Nigeria, so I have to always come around here, you know, every January just for this purpose. All right, yeah. So I meet people who end up telling me they attended a particular edition of the conference, you know, and I did this, I did this, I did that for them. For this particular edition, the reason why we, you know, settled for the theme Unbroken is also because running this on this scale for the past 10 years has also not been so easy. So we've been unbroken ourselves. You get what I'm saying right now? So we're providing the opportunities, you know, for some of the speakers that we have, all right, who've also had to face very daunting, breaking challenges in the course of their journey or their trajectory in life. And they've been able to surmount all of those, all right, to come share with the people.
Right, there's a reason for everything,
oh, yeah.
you know, being done. And, you know, 10 years on,
yeah,
you're doing this. You know, what was the inspiration?
It's perhaps, you know, if I can help you put it better, Joke, why did you start in the first place?
Interesting question. Well, I mean, for the past, let me backtrack a little bit to also say thank you to, you know, Chairman Mr. John Momo, all right, because for the past 10 years, Channels has been behind us. I think the only year I didn't come here in the past 10 years was perhaps last year. I'm a man of God. I'm a pastor. Everything that I do is driven, you know, by the Spirit of the Lord. In 2016, again, like I said, right, the conference has been, even before 2016, but not pronounced. It became pronounced sometimes in 2016. And what was the inspiration or the motive? The Lord spoke to me and said, gather young professionals, you know, in a room, and then gather Christians who are thriving in their own fields and let them pour into them. The conference is not a spiritual gathering, as it were. It's inspirational and motivational. The intention is to have, you know, someone who is already thriving in their own path or journey in life come share, you know, with someone who is about to start their own journey on how the journey has been for them. more like a mentor-mentee gathering, if I may put it that way. All right, and that's one of the reasons why you'd see people attend the conference, and some years down the line they will be telling you, "Oh, I took this course after I attended the conference. Oh, I heard this person talked about this, and because of that, I went ahead and I started this business. Or I was able to do this." You can see them take, practical steps, to bettering their lives as a result of attendance, of the conference. So for me, what the Lord told me to do is exactly what we're doing. Just gather people together and bring those who've already walked the path. All right, let them share with those who are about to start their own journey, and let them have the opportunity to share both the wins and the losses with them.
And how loftily has the heights been?
It's been incredible, with all sense of modesty. Again, like I said, in the past 10 years, sustaining this long, I'm not trying to give kudos to myself or my team, right? But I think that my team, I think they've tried. Take for example, like I said, I don't live here. I'm based in Canada. That's why I've been living there now for over 10 years, right? And I have just about the core team of this conference, the brains behind. There are less than 10 people who've been running it for the past 10 years, putting their all and all of that. And then sometimes I get to travel, or even on social media, right? I would see people send me a DM, especially in seasons like this, when we're planning for the next edition. So, oh, I attended 2022 edition. I attended 2018 edition. You add this person, you have that person. These were the things, that edition did for me, and all of that. So it's been quite very lofty. If not, we perhaps would have ditched it.
Yeah.
And because, again, this wasn't a man's idea, from the get-go. It's not also, because, okay, let me be vulnerable here. At some point, I wanted to take a pause, especially after COVID. But I didn't have a release from the Lord. At my level, you don't do things because you just feel like doing it. You do what God would have you do. Whether it is pleasant or it is not pleasant, the Lord has a reason for that. As a matter of fact, just yesterday or this morning, I was still talking to someone, and I was saying, okay, after this 10th edition, I think we'll look for a way to pivot things. Say, but we're going to flow with whatever direction the Lord is going to be leading us on. Are you getting what I'm saying? So if it were left to myself, based off, because the conference is self-funded, and it's not chicken change, because it's free, all right? So nobody's paying a cent to attend. And for the past 10 years, nobody would say they ever paid 1 cent before they gained access, into any of those rooms. So if I think about the logistics, the planning, the cost implication, it's not anything any human mind, would say they want to. It's not sustainable, humanly speaking. But because it is God's idea, and the Lord Himself is backing it up and, transforming the lives of the people, we are riding on.
Right, and who are the expected speakers
for this edition?
For this edition, and what are the expertise and ideas they're bringing forth?
So one of the things that we do is the theme for the year in question determines the kind of guests, speakers that come on board. And it's the same thing we've done this year. You have Grace Ofure. She's into real estate. She's an entrepreneur. She's a woman who's been there and back and there and back and there and back, multiple times, still thriving. You have Philip Olubake, who's a pastor, all right, who has a very interesting story in respect to his background, and all of that. And despite all of that, he's thriving, all right, in his field. You have Shola. Shola is a very, what do I use now? A young man who has done so well for himself, despite and in spite of the challenges, that he has had to encounter in the course of his journey. You have Inyaboyeji. He's a young, tech guy, someone like that. People like this have stories. They have the question is not about even that, that people are not thriving. It is that many of these people who are thriving where they are thriving, they do not even have the opportunity of, unearthing themselves or their processes, their journeys onto others. So the beauty of the conference is that you see someone like me, whose story you read online, he got X and Y $1 million funding and all of that, and you'll be thinking in your head, how was he able to do that? So you have someone like him speak to you directly, tell you his journey, both the wins, and the losses, and I think that is where the inspiration usually comes from. So that way, success is no longer afar off. It's not something, that is too far away to see.
It's not mystic.
Yeah, it's not mystic. God bless you for that word. It's not mystic. So it's totally, demystified, if I may use that word, right? Broken down. And then
tangible, it's reachable.
God bless you, sir. So you can literally meet these people and see them, all right? And then you can have them, all right? You can hear. It's not someone telling their stories, for them. It's themselves telling you their stories, all right? And you have the opportunity, to also engage in them. That's the beauty of the conference for me.
Right. So, and have you ever had, testimonies from
Jesus.
Outside of the fact that you say, oh, I attended the conference in so year, but you have testimonies of, because I attended this conference, this happened and I've become this.
I was in the green room over there and I was speaking to a prodigy. His name is Philip. Philip is one of the big guys in real estate in Lagos here, today. Philip cut his teeth and broke into real estate, now sit on a multi-dollar investment through Lofty Heights Conference. As a matter of fact, last year's edition, the videos are there online. If you go on YouTube, Lofty Heights Christian Center, you would see that. All right, he shared a story publicly. As a matter of fact, for this year's edition, he was supposed to be one of the speakers, but it was to embark on a major trip out of the country. Was the reason why I had to drop him and then have somebody else come on board. So it's not it's beyond just you meeting me and then just saying, Apostle, thank you so very much for putting that conference together. It really inspired me. No. I've met people with tangible proofs. Tangible proofs. When Philip came for the first edition, he just finished from Lagos State University, LASU. He was at a point in life where he was trying to figure out life. I think he attended, according to him, maybe 2017 or 2018 edition. So this time around for this year, you would have some of these undergraduates, some of them graduate already, come around, who do not have clarity of thought and perhaps the soundness of mind to knowing what the next 2 years or 3 years, hold in stock for them. So you then get to be in a room where you're being inspired, and like you said, very tangibly. All right, it's not a success that is afar off. It's something within reach for you. And there will be something in you telling you, if this person can truly, except the story the person is going to tell is going to be faulty, or it's going to be lies, which is not the case.
Well, now that you have titillated the people, question.
Yeah.
Who, what, where, when, why, how of this conference? Where is it happening? When is it happening? How do people apply to attend?
To register, right? This edition holds this coming Saturday, that's 17th of January, here in Lagos at 13 Okilin. That's actually KICC Prayer Dome, just by Ken Village, Mende, Maryland. All right, to register, again, like I said, attendance at the conference has always been free. It's one of the things that people also, stress me about. Why are you making it free, and all of that. But again, you flow by what the Lord would have you do. It's not a money-making venture for me. If that were the case, I believe that I would have parked it, a very long time ago. All right, so to register for the conference, you can easily visit any of our social media handles at Lofty Heights NG. All right, or sign on via the website loftyheightsglobal.org/LHC Nigeria. Attendance is free.
The website
registration
is
required.
on the screen right now.
Yes, yes, that's the website address there. Yeah, loftyheightsglobal.org/LHC Nigeria. Yeah.
Perhaps, we were talking about poverty the other time.
Yeah.
And perhaps, we say that it's not just government. Different people need to. Perhaps it is. If by the stories you've told, the people have had breakthroughs because of this, then perhaps this is one of the things.
On that site, on that website, there are stories of people there who've made tangible progresses in life, just as a result of the attendance of the conference. Because of my exposure by way of, international exposures, I should say, you would realize that Nigeria is very deficit when it comes to knowledge sharing. That actually is the very basics, of the poverty you're talking about. You have people who are driven, people who are very zealous, people who are very enthusiastic. They just don't know what to do. Yeah. And I was once there too. Thank God for people like, Fela Durotoye, and the rest of them. You get what I'm saying? So someone may be watching me right now, even as I'm here in this studio. A student, part 3, part 4, a graduate who doesn't have a job, or someone who is working somewhere who is not finding fulfillment in what they're doing. There is such a dearth of knowledge in this part of the world. And that's one of the things, this conference is addressing. And more so, because it is even free. So what holds you back from the desire to invest in 3 hours, 4 hours of your day next week Saturday? I'm very persuaded beyond any reasonable doubt. You cannot attend that conference, all right, and then live the same way. It's not possible. Okay. So there will be something that's going to change. Because if the thinking of a man changes, the way he thinks would also change. And the result of his life will produce it. Okay.
So it's January
17th. Saturday, January 17th.
Saturday, January 17th.
2026.
Time.
8 a.m.
From 8 a.m.
Yeah, from 8 a.m. to about 3 p.m.
4 p.m. thereabout.
Yeah.
Okay.
8 a.m. registration begins. Conferences start at 9 a.m.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for those who want to register, they go to
loftyheightsglobal.org/LHC Nigeria, or on Instagram, Wale Tejumade on Instagram, or at loftyheightsng on Instagram. Yeah. The links are all there everywhere. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me again. It's always a pleasure. And thank you, channels, for this that you do with us every year. I'm grateful. Yeah.
Well, we are back. This time, parents, mommies and daddies, get your pen and paper. You are going to class.
An inexhaustive conversation. We still talked about this. Managing age, appropriate behavior.
Because, something that I always say, that we assume a lot of things. There are some of us who are going to be, your mind is going to be, what's the word now? Your theology about parenting is going to be challenged today, because some people grew up being forced to take Akamo.
Yes.
Now, is it still right for anyone to take Akamo and all of those things? So many ways to look at this, because essentially there is such a thing as has been established last week. There is such a thing as age-appropriate behavior. A child throwing tantrums is not new. The question is, at what age is that child limited to do that? So when a teenager is throwing tantrums, what kind of tantrums is tantrums? And which kind of tantrum is attracting, go to the corner, or go to your room, and all those things? So those are what the conversation is about this morning.
And we have Kingsley Obom William, I hope I got that right.
You did.
Parenting and teens counselor. He joins us in the studio to talk about how we can manage this.
Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
It's always a pleasure.
Are you feeling the Harmattan or lack of it?
No, it's actually, the last time I was here, my head got frozen.
Okay, let's get to it. Every time you came here, you always reminded us how different things have become over the years, particularly in the parenting space. And perhaps a little more explicitly, how parents do not have as much understanding of their children this generation as they ought. And how that the strategies that worked for parenting back then do not really apply anymore. Now, to be specific today, it's about age-appropriate behavior. And this conversation is more about parents than the children.
Exactly.
What do you make of it? Is there such a thing? Let's begin from there.
Of course. Of course there is. I mean, you know, but within the limits of milestones, you know, and the basic milestones are talking, walking, toilet, how do I put it now? Toilet behavior, let's just use that, because some will say how to wee-wee and poo-poo. You know, personal hygiene to a large extent, or to some extent, courtesy, just those basic things. But you see, social behaviors are also not physiological milestones. They are social milestones that are transferable. In other words, if you always enter your house and you leave your shoes by the door, if you do it every day, one day, your child will also do the same thing. Even if that child hasn't started talking, the child will take off his or her shoes. Why? It's social learning. And don't forget, children they are described as the experts in mimicry. So that is an expression of social learning. So they are watching, and then they are repeating what you're saying. I don't know if you remember this. You must have seen some children just, because you could tell that child has been attending a lot of that videos. I'm watching the parents, and then you see some children, and they say, me. It's an expression of mimicry. They have been watching certain adults in their lives. And then they see these adults shake their heads and alter certain things, and they've come to accept that this is how adults do. This is what they do, especially when they pretend to be praying, you know. So these are behaviors. Okay. Now, within the sphere of appropriate behavior, like I said, you have the physical one, you have the cognitive appropriate behavior, or rather, you have the appropriate behaviors that are, cognitive based. You have the ones that are emotional. You have the ones that are social, and then emotional.
It's the ones that are physical that people see. Okay, so
no, the physical ones are basic milestones. For instance, a child is born. Between age 1 and 2, the child starts to work. That is a physical milestone. And why is the child working? Because there are adults in the room who are not crawling. So the child starts to reason, these guys,
they have legs like me.
Exactly. And they are walking. I need to try. And then sometimes you can even fast track that by lifting the child and then moving the child. If you do that every day, before you know it, the child will start to work much earlier than other children.
Let me see if we can speed it up a bit and get to the core. Parents are uncomfortable when a child is disobedient, recalcitrant,
exhibiting maladaptive
behavior, pretty much, showing behavior that the parent has to repeat and repeat and repeat, which the parent can interpret as deliberate disobedience and all of those things. So, is there anything parents need to understand there about, okay, this child knows the year word.
You know the
year word.
Yeah. Okay, first, I think the parents need to equip themselves with certain knowledge. And what is that? children copy more than they listen. Now they understand, but sometimes when what they see contradicts with what they hear, they do what they see. So that's one factor. The second factor is...
so in other words, if the parent is a liar, we should respect the child.
I mean, it goes without saying. If you keep saying, read your book, and then as a parent, you haven't demonstrated, you haven't shown how pardon my word, how sexy reading is, I'm not going to read. I just pretend to be reading, but in my mind, I want you to get out so I can go and do some other things. But if you can demonstrate that this thing I'm telling you, not only do I do it, this is the result. It's only natural. You won't say much, and it kicks in. So how much have we modeled the instructions? And then there's also something you need to understand. Sometimes when children are forming their personality, you as a parent, you need to understand personality differences, individual differences. You have 4 children, you have 4 different human beings. So that Alero and Jide are behaving like bookworms doesn't mean that
Kingsley,
the guy don't send you. If you like, drop 1,000 naira for the best reader. I no go read that book. So you need to understand that these are different people. What works for one will definitely not work for the other. So if you understand that, then you need to parent them based on these individual differences.
Isn't that a little complex? My apologies. Isn't that a little complex for parents? Because on the one hand, we put 30 children, 20 children in one class.
Yeah.
They're all taught the same thing, the same way, by the same teacher, and they're all examined equally.
Yeah.
How should it be? Why should it be different at home?
At home. But even the example you gave, we're not getting results there. We're not getting good. We're not doing well there. It's like saying you have the fish, you have the elephant, you have the leopard, you have the eagle. You are all teaching them, and on the examination day, the test is you have to climb a tree. How many of them will climb tree? It's bad. You know, there are children you know very well that I have them in my house. There's one of them. I don't know if she's watching now, but I'm sorry, you are watching me, no problem. She's smart, but she has a way. She will ban exams from our system because that's not the best way of expressing her intelligence. Once you formalize these things, forget it. There's wahala. So the mere thought of evaluating their learning in a formal way where you have to grade, it gives them a problem. So, and there are people like that, so many of them. So our system is
So my apologies. So is that the reason why some parents are frustrated by the fact that my children doesn't study?
Yeah, they study, but you don't understand how they study. You don't know how to learn. You don't know
it's not the students that are paying the school fees. The thing they pay.
They pay. But you see, you who is paying the fee, the first thing you need to do is to go to school and understand the child that you're raising. If you don't, it's just like a poultry farmer, yeah? That's correct. You're rearing chickens, huh? And you don't even understand that these chicks, there are certain weather conditions that could be injurious to their thriving and survival. And then you think all they need is feeds. And then you start to feed them. But forgetting that there's a disease somewhere. And that disease kills all of them. So you need to understand that you are raising personalities that are diverse, individuals that are forming their identity, and then you also have this part of it that we don't realize, and which is they are unique gifts. These are gifts they were born with, and if you suppress that gift, what you've succeeded in doing is you have reconfigured an entire human being. I'll give you an instance, Ayo. A child who comes into this world with exceptional kinesthetics ability, you know what that means? The child's intelligence is expressed in the use of his or her body. And the child is in a school where, first of all, you know these schools that are in a duplex. They don't even have a playground, let alone a football field. How do you want that child to manifest? No. So that child is going to be in the classroom, frustrated, bored, and maybe one day the child will conclude that education has come.
Okay, so how do we take this further? The reason for that question is you are asking us to understand children.
Yeah.
Good. We were once teenagers.
Yeah.
So shouldn't I use
No, we're even children now.
We were children,
Yeah.
Thank you. But it's those teenage boys and girls that's the real thing. Because parents do a lot of comparing. I'm not comparing you, but look at your friend.
but even at that, let me add to that. Please keep his thought.
Okay.
Is there a global standard to managing teenagers? Because there's a school of thought that says once you get children get to the teenage age, they all seem to behave the same. I can do it by myself. I know how to do things. I can make my own decisions. I'm not a kid anymore. You know, it's the same language and the same expectation.
In adolescent, what you're referring to now is, an adolescent psychology, where you understand the peculiarities of the adolescent age, which is usually from age 8 to 22. In between, you now have the teenage age, but it's all blended within the adolescent. So at that period, when the child's the hormonal changes begin, you can't expect the child to remain the same. So it's a basic biological reality. It's not a global standard. Do you understand? So as soon as my body starts to change, my brain will start to act differently. Do you get? The moment I start to wonder, why am I having wet dreams, which nobody even told him that this is wet dreams?
Exactly, leading me to ask, is that we don't prepare the children.
No, you're talking, dude. Now you're talking.
The evolution.
Now, you're a girl. You saw
something
is swelling on your chest. You're looking at him, what is this thing? This thing wasn't like this before. And then the next thing, you're having your bath and blood started coming out. These are physical manifestations, but before that, they are biological manifestations. The things have changed in my system, and nobody's engaging me around these things. I'm trying to figure them out. In the course of trying to figure them out, we have house chores to deal with. We have schools to deal with. I have my grades to pass. And beyond that, somebody's even punishing me for not doing what I'm supposed to do. This is what I'm dealing with. And then I'm liking this boy. I don't know why I'm liking this boy. He's coming around. He makes me feel one kind. Nobody's telling me how I'm feeling one kind. And then I'm liking this girl. Nobody's talking to me. I'm going to bed at night. I haven't gone to the bathroom to pee, but I wake up, everywhere is wet. Nobody is engaging with me.
Rather, they beat me for bedwetting.
My brother. So these are the things that, back to your question, you see, we were not well raised in the sense of our parents didn't understand us. We had to go through those things, deal with them, and now it's our turn. And we're starting to expose ourselves to knowledge. And that knowledge is giving us some insight into, this man and this woman ought to have done this if they knew what I know now. Do you get? So we ought to start correcting those anomalies that our parents allowed us to go through. And what are those anomalies? Which is the fact that Jide has certain natural abilities to understand maths more than Ayo. It is called logical intelligence. That is not to say Ayo will not understand maths. But the time that Ayo needs to understand maths could be like 3 hours, whereas in 30 minutes, Jide will understand the concept and it's good to go. But the teacher, because he only knows how to teach people like Jide, as soon as the class is over, 30 minutes, do you understand? Yes. Any question? No. And then the Ayos in the class, I don't understand this video. I don't understand. Meanwhile, Jide becomes the SI unit of measuring his ability to teach maths. Yes. Yeah. Whereas, dude, I can understand maths, but you haven't stayed with me long enough. And then Ayo gets home and, can I see your report card? Wala is starting. Can't you see Jide? Is Jide not in the same class? Look at this. We didn't understand that this guy has certain dispositions that makes it easier for him. And then there are also subjects that Ayo will be high flyer that Jide can't accomplish because of those natural inclinations. So these are all those individual differences that kind of dictate the age-appropriate behavior, quote unquote, that parents are oblivious of, for which
there is a conversation that Joke is not aware of that we have had that we must discuss next. This struggle with gentle parenting. Yeah, we'll come to that in a different future.
There's a colleague of there's someone I know. I'm sorry, guys. I'm gonna just put this in. That said that, I think the husband is not around. Okay. But when the husband was around, it was tough. It was when the husband left that the children knew that she's also a tough mom. So that takes care of the gentle parent.
No, it doesn't.
One of us is gentle until the other is not around.
No, I assure you, it's not really.
All right, we have to go.
Thank you so much for your time this morning again. Doctor, yes, maybe you are working on it. Kingsley of Excellent Parenting and Teens Counselor, we appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much.
Now, you watch a lot of movies. You see, you go for stage plays and all of that. You see the actors and actresses, but then do you ever really pay attention to what happens in the environment? You see music videos, then you just see that there is this, why did they plot this movie in a bush? This song all of that is what we are talking about next. Well, thank you so much for staying with us. This morning, we are talking with our artist of the week, who is a highly acclaimed art director, set designer, props creator, stylist, consumer, costumier, etc., etc. Fio Olanrewaju is his name. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
Why is your name Fio? As in petrol.
Can we go that route?
We are starting from there.
Okay, Fio Olanrewaju is not just a name. The name is working. When you look at fuel, naturally, fuel had a value. So it is God's name. Like when the God is in us, that's what propels our life. So when that fuel is no more there.
So we'll ask you again later whether or not this was your given name. So what does it really take to be an art director? Most times when we are talking about our artist of the week on this program, we are talking to the camera-facing people. We don't usually talk to the director or the producer or the art director or the brand manager when we can get the acts themselves. But we're making an exception of you, and perhaps, going forward from time to time. What does an art director do?
Just like a question that you ask, when you go, you see what the lawyers usually do.
We know.
So An art director is a visual storyteller. Like for every project, for every concept, for every film, for every creative works, there is a hidden in the storytelling that is not visualized until someone actually
interprets it,
work on it. So is the head of creative parts when it comes to projects for filmmaking, for, as you are here, this place was not like this in inception. So somebody came up with the idea of which color is Channel's color. And when you look at Channel's, you see it's blue. So that's why, apart from the gold, you can see the blue is dominant. So that act of thinking for a project, for a set, is the work of the art direction. So art director is a visual storyteller who knows more about the details, who pay attention to details. Like taking, for example, okay, let's take it from the music you just played now. I was the art director for this. I was even the producer for this video. That's Kizdane, even the first one. So I could remember my director then, Adasa Kuki. He's not even a Yoruba man. He does not really understand more of Yoruba. But I was happy when I saw the project and I look at it and say, this guy is sounding like a traditional person. But a very soft guy, like even for him to dance was so not like the same Kizdane now. So when I look at it, it's the way I was like, let's follow this direction, let's do this. The director was like, do you know why I wanted to work on this project? I love the sound, and then already after the video, the guy was everywhere. So what somebody actually sat down and looked at it and said, okay, the king is about love. He's talking about love. So if you want to interpret the love like that, I think you can take it to a beach. And that was how the whole idea. Sometimes when we want to work on a project, we listen more than 200 or 300 times, like music video. You won't know that. It is when you first listen to it, you think you have gotten the idea. It's when you keep listening, the idea keep coming, and it's just God's ability. It's not just by power. Sometimes idea drops. That most of those elaborate videos that you see, there's nothing new, but there are people that are being gifted to see details to storytelling. That's the director.
Okay, so we'll talk about some others, but quick one. What are the things that inform the judgment? For instance, what informed your direction for God win?
Okay, for God's win, for our team, then when you look at the story, you see that in that aspect, everybody, every human being has one thing or the other that's, as you are here, some people are praying, I want to be like Ayo Makinde. So that person, also another person is looking at you, like you say you are a organizer, right? But some people are even looking for where to put their machine too. They don't even have money to. So if you look at everybody, there's a story that you are actually winning on.
Yeah.
So lawyer, if nobody brings case now, you are not winning. So you are a doctor. You can't pray that people should not sick. So you are winning. So these are you just graduated from school and you look at it and say, somebody is aspiring to also go to school.
Yeah.
So what drives us, like when we are thinking of those concepts, is just a reality, what we see, what everybody passes through every day.
Yeah.
So from our personal experience sometimes too, we turn it to a story.
What does it take? What has it taken from you? Okay, maybe I should put it this way. Why did you get into art direction and set design?
I did not just get into art direction. Like, okay, like I have 2 kids now. David, the firstborn, 7 years. Celine is 5 years. But this girl usually disturbs me every day. I want to draw. I want to draw. She sweep house. When I observe that, I realize that I need to teach her how to always decorate house, how to set the house in order. So there's a gift in her. But there's somebody who's senior in, who like to play, who like to sing, who like to, when we are praying in the house, we repeat, table, whatever. You know that from there. So somebody like me, I started as a production assistant, but before we could go to the next scene, on my own, without any direction, I just want to put myself to it. That was my foundation. So I just want to like, why would I have to wait for somebody to prompt us before we set? So I always go ahead. I don't know where the idea always comes from. So it is to put this copy here, to put everything there. I want to do it. It's not even my responsibility. So one day, I just realized that this thing that you are doing is somebody's work. So I talked to myself, and most of the directors I work with as a production assistant, they only see that trait in me, like, this guy, he wants to support the set designer. He wants to. So from there, I think when I joined Square Ball Media, my first job as a production assistant, the director has to have a meeting like, who make our job to be more faster than the way usually you do it. So the PM pointed to me. They were surprised before they came outside. I've already decorated a Benz.
As if they knew.
That I've decorated the room. Like, okay. So the next job, I became a supporting producer.
Wow.
The next job, I became a producer. So this guy can get us all these things. To the extent that the guy that was the art director, he called me. When they want to pay you, now me then they give you money too. How come that you are doing more than what they have given you? You make me look like if I don't know what I'm doing. I say, it's just not me. I can't find myself being anywhere. So start from house. Like you see somebody that doesn't like to see their house more than 6 months, they want to turn it. That is a direction.
Really? I'm guilty.
Always rearranging.
You just see them that they are not comfortable after 3 months. This color is not okay for me.
My office at some point was, I think, about like a 6x8 room. I changed the table so many times.
It's a gift on its own.
Small room, 6x8 room. I would change, okay, move it this way, move it that way, and all of that from time to time. So that's our direction. I'm an art director.
It's busybody job. Busybody job.
Exactly. But sometimes, I know you have your own questions too. I'm just curious, because sometimes you pretty much, you literally create the atmosphere of the environment. I'll cite 2 movies. You may not have been a part of them. One of them is The Morning After, written and produced and directed by Jimmy Odumosu. Stella Damasos played the lead on that movie. And then another one is The King of Boys, which I'm very sure you know. Yeah. Very complex environment. There's also Living in Bondage, the very first one, and all of those things. So you pretty much have to create what didn't exist, to emphasize some things. I'm just at a loss as to how those things come to be. Yeah. I would also add that when you people create blood and create wounds, sometimes you're wondering, I know that's the job of a makeup person, but the fact that it even came up, how do those things come?
Okay, let me take from that blood that you just mentioned now. There are elements out there, like what people call Eruku Oshodi.
Yes.
That Eruku Oshodi.
Yeah,
if you want to do
cocoa drink,
making a blood as an effect for a movie or anything like that, there are many directions. But that particular one, imagine you want to do a thick blood, like it's not fresh. So you can mix water, just salt water, little to that thing. It will give you that kind of that brownish blood.
How did they even come up with that?
so you call it Eruku Oshodi, but for us it's blood.
Yeah,
it's blood. When you not see it on camera, you see the way people react to it, you won't know. So another thing, this cake maker, they have their coloring. There's this small bottle like that.
Yeah.
Pour it in a plastic water bottle and add water to it. Or put your finger, you see that anybody sees it, call it blood. It's a blood. And those are the things that you see, that you look at, it looks real. It looks real. So you can experiment it. So the detail about that, how do we come up with those things that make people scared? Like, okay, let me look at the recent job I did was about a horror film, which is coming out in Easter period. That job, when I saw the treatment does not really give, though nobody tell you it's an horror film. It's when you read that you now use your own things. When I look at it, I say, okay. So the director came in when we finished the first setup, and he was confused, like, oh, this is exactly what I was looking for. How did you come up that the whole 5-star hotel, you turn the whole bedroom to like a monster place? What are you doing? Just look for a charcoal. Look for a charcoal, we mix it with water. We rub that white that you think, and that place turned to like a dilapidated building. That's the first thing. So now inside that zinc, we pour that blood inside. And then you press it, you see the blood come out now. So these are the little things that when you see, you think it's real blood that is coming out of. How come that kind of a thing is? You think it's real blood that is coming out of. So there are many ways that. It's not your job. As you are sitting down there like this, I can't sit down. So I can only sit down here. Okay.
So, you talked about the early beginnings, but, what did you think that you were going to be doing this?
That's why
when you were...
we parents, we need to help our children. Like once we discover that there is traits in them, like this guy is going to be an orator. Nobody can tell me that what Sayo is doing today, he started doing it like few years ago. He has been there when he was young, but somebody might be saying, come on, keep quiet, you talk too much. So that talk too much is making him to sit down here.
Yes.
So being an art director is what we call ability.
It's not ability.
It's not ability.
It is when you now work on it that you realize that you are not like other people.
Yeah.
That there is something in you that makes people to say, when you set up, when you arrange room, so ordinary sweeping. That's a skill. That's a way of.
It's a skill.
So just like somebody will sweep a room, you will hardly see. And other people, I've done it now. They say, they will do it 10 times. You still find out that they are not doing it perfect. So the idea of becoming a creative person, it is just in you. We don't learn it.
Let me ask you, how lucrative is it to be an art director?
It's so easy. Okay.
I mean, how much money do you make good money from it?
God has been so faithful. There was a time that even this December, I did this AI TV AG advert job. While we are on it, there's about 3 or 4 jobs that are also pending, and that job actually drained me. Because the story, I don't know what you've watched. You see this AI that you have to talk to your remote, and so their latest adverts on the art director. So that job was supposed to be like 5 days, but we end up doing like 3 days. So now for that 3 days now, like the director or the producer does not have the budget, or maybe they don't want to spend money to. So limiting that job of 5 days to
3 days,
it's going to be stressful.
Yes.
So now you as an art director, before any other person will work now, you have to set up. So it's really, so it's a story of 1960. In 1960, there is no any TV. So you have to do Village Square setup. From there, go to 1970. Imagine there was no LG that time. So you have to go look for which TV transformed to LG. I have to go and search for the remote. Imagine. So these are the things that when you want to, it's just like you work like a magician.
It takes a lot of research. That's what you're saying.
Sometimes, sir, things work for, if you're not director, things work for you differently from other people. Because they usually call
it is magician. Lucrative. In other words, people will make a lot of money from it.
Sir, it's spiritual. Because sometimes we don't know how it's happened. You just see that you are here now. The director will just tell you, I don't know how you want to do it. This thing I'm turning into. And you just look around like this. Ordinarily, what other person could not even see, you just see it. How it happens sometimes.
So okay, so so what he said is still Abinibi. Is that because I'm wondering what it takes to be an art director. If you say you have to look inward, you don't know how you just do it, so you just get it done there.
That means it takes a lot of imagination.
It takes a lot of imagination.
Deep thinking can actually make you more different from every other person. When you look at some of these art directors, for me to mention like Clarence Peter, Adasa Kuki, the likes of Ajay, if those people refuse to work for 5 years, once they comes back, people will still rush them. You know why? they pay attention to detail. So that deep thinking is
how easy is it for a young man? We have just a few seconds to go on the program. How easy is it for a young person who is looking at you now and saying, this looks like what I want to do? How is it easy for them to get in?
There's not any new idea. There is a power of media, social media. So when you go out there, you just make research. You realize that most of the things that we do sometimes, you go on Pinterest, you go to, when you don't want to even stress your brain, you just have to make research and you get a lot of ideas. But majorly, it starts from that thing that you love to do, that you don't even know that some people are there now, they have this ability to become better than the best art director, but they are doing something that they don't even know that what they are doing is. So cleaning your house well, rearranging your house, you're not director.
Interesting. Well, Fiolola Ariwaju, we have to thank you very much for your time this morning. Now we know. Art director, fashion designer, set designer, props creator, stylist, costumier, etc., etc. By the way, it's your birthday this month, right?
The next couple of hours.
Next couple of hours?
Wow.
It's going to be 50
Where's the party at? I'm dressed already.
Do you have black and gold?
I have all colors.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, happy birthday to you, and thank you very much for making our time this morning.
Channels, thank you. Channels TV, thank you so much.
And that's the show today. Thank you for the privilege of being a part of your morning.
Yes.
Compliments of the season.
Yet again.
In order. What's today's date?
Today is the 10th.
Okay, I withdraw my compliments. Amaya Makine, enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Bye.